The stars had always been silent to Captain Jason Hale. Even now, as the United Terran fleet hung in formation near the edge of the Orion Arm, he felt the quiet like a weight. It wasn't the kind of silence that brought peace or calm. It was heavy, almost mocking. Humanity had spent 2 centuries trying to reach out to the stars. They had sent probes, broadcast signals of peace, and built colonies beyond Earth. For 2 centuries, they waited for a response, and when it finally came, it wasn't what anyone expected. The first contact with alien life didn't happen on Earth or even near its orbit. It happened in a distant system called Zeta 7, where a human science vessel stumbled upon a crystalline species known as the Vathari. The Vathari were tall, shimmering beings who communicated through chiming sounds that resonated like wind chimes. Their voices were beautiful, but their message was cold. They welcomed humanity to the Galactic Council, but it wasn't a warm welcome. It felt more like an invitation to watch them from the sidelines while the real players took center stage. When Earth proposed joining the Interstellar Defense Pact, the Vathari ambassador laughed. Not figuratively, literally. His chiming voice filled the council chamber, echoing off the walls. "Your ships burn chemical fuel?" he said, floating inches above the floor. "You still use fusion torches?" How charming. Other species followed suit. The Cathar, insectoid warlords who ruled over 1,000 systems, refused to even acknowledge Earth's envoys. The Sylph, a telepathic aquatic race, broadcast waves of amusement across diplomatic channels. "They believe they are equals?" one Sylph representative thought aloud. "Their lifespan is less than a single Cathar mating cycle." Jason hated the laughter most of all. He could feel it every time he walked onto the bridge of the ETS Liberty. The crew tried to stay focused, but the tension was thick. Everyone knew what the galaxy thought of them: latecomers, fragile organics, sparks that would burn out before they could leave a mark. By the time the United Terran fleet arrived at the galactic rendezvous point, a massive gathering of ships from dozens of species, the laughter had become deafening. Videos of human vessels maneuvering awkwardly in space circulated across alien networks. Captions mocked their designs. "Watch the monkeys play soldier," one read. Another showed a clip of a frigate misaligning during a docking procedure with the words, "This is why organics can't have nice things." Jason stood on the bridge of the Liberty, staring at the holographic feed of alien fleets. There were spires made of light, organic bioships that pulsed like living creatures, and vessels that bent space around them like shadows. Human ships looked plain by comparison, blocky, utilitarian, functional. But Jason saw something no one else did. Beneath the surface, hidden away in secret labs and classified projects, humanity had been building something extraordinary. "Let them laugh," Jason said under his breath. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the railing. "They don't know what we've been building in the dark." The truth was, humanity hadn't just been sending ships into space. They had been learning, reverse engineering alien tech scavenged from derelict ships. Experimenting with quantum physics in ways no other species had dared, pushing the limits of what was possible. While the rest of the galaxy dismissed them as primitives, humans were quietly reinventing themselves. Lieutenant Carla Mitchell, head of the Terran Astrophysics Division, had been part of the effort from the beginning. She sat in her lab aboard the Liberty, surrounded by glowing screens and humming machines. Her eyes scanned data streams faster than most people could blink. She had spent years working on the Helios Lance, a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't plasma or kinetic energy. It was pure vacuum energy, focused and devastating. When fired, it didn't just destroy ships. It erased them from existence. Carla leaned back in her chair and sighed. She hated the politics of it all, the insults, the mockery. But she also understood why the brass wanted to keep their advancements secret. If the galaxy knew what humanity was capable of, there would be panic, war, maybe even extinction. So they waited, watched, learned. Back on Earth, President Ellis sat in the Oval Office, reviewing reports from the fleet. He was a calm man with steel-gray hair and a steady gaze. He had spent his career preparing humanity for this moment, the moment when they would step onto the galactic stage and show the universe what they were truly made of. "They think we're still crawling," he said to his advisors. "Show them we've been flying." Orders went out across the fleet. The Silent Fleet, a secret armada of experimental ships, was mobilized. These weren't the blocky utilitarian vessels the aliens mocked. They were sleek, deadly, and armed, with technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Quantum drives that folded space, shields that reflected energy back at amplified frequencies, weapons that didn't just destroy, they unraveled reality itself. As the orders trickled down, Jason felt a strange mix of pride and dread. Pride because humanity was finally stepping up. Dread because he knew what was coming. War, bloodshed, loss. The galaxy wouldn't take kindly to being shown up by a bunch of ephemeral sparks. But Jason also knew something else. Something deeper. Humanity wasn't fighting for conquest or power. They were fighting for survival, for recognition, for a seat at the table. And if the galaxy wanted to laugh at them, fine. Let them laugh. Because soon, very soon, the laughter would turn to silence, and then perhaps to respect. The war began without warning. There was no declaration, no ultimatum, no grand speech broadcast across the stars. It started with fire and chaos on the outer colony of New Carthage. The Cathar raiding fleet descended like a storm, their bioships, pulsing with an eerie green glow as they unleashed waves of energy that burned cities to ash. They harvested biomatter from the surface, ripping apart everything in their path. Humanity's cries for help echoed through the void. But the galaxy remained silent. No one came to their aid. When the United Terran Fleet arrived, it wasn't with an armada. It was with a single carrier group led by the ETS Liberty. The Cathar laughed when they saw the human ships. Their laughter filled the comms channels, a cacophony of clicks and hisses that sounded almost gleeful. "You bring 12 ships to face us?" one Cathar commander spat. "How amusing." Jason Hale stood on the bridge of the Liberty, his jaw clenched. He didn't respond to the taunts. Instead, he gave the order. "Fire the Helios Lance." The weapon charged with a low hum, energy building within its core until the entire ship vibrated. Then, with a flash so bright it blinded sensors for kilometers, the beam shot out. It pierced through the Cathar flagship like it wasn't even there, tearing through layers of organic armor as if they were made of paper. The ship didn't just explode, it unraveled. Its quantum core destabilized, creating a chain reaction that lit up the system like a second sun. The laughter stopped. One by one, the Cathar ships turned their attention to the Liberty. They fired volleys of plasma and kinetic weapons, but the human shields held firm. The energy reflected back at amplified frequencies, shredding the attacking vessels. Within minutes, the battlefield shifted. What had been a massacre became a rout. Lieutenant Carla Mitchell watched the data stream from her station aboard the Liberty. Her hands moved quickly over the controls, adjusting targeting algorithms and recalibrating the Helios Lance. She felt a strange mix of awe and horror as she watched the weapon work. It wasn't just powerful, it was precise. Every shot hit its mark. Every blast erased another enemy ship from existence. "Keep firing," Jason said, his voice steady. "Don't. Stop until they're gone." By the time the last Cathar vessel imploded under the weight of its own gravity field, twisted by a human resonance bomb, the survivors were broadcasting a single word across all frequencies: mercy. There was no reply. News of the battle spread quickly. The Vathari called an emergency session of the Galactic Council, demanding answers. "Excessive force," the High Archon chimed, his voice sharp with accusation. "Uncontrolled aggression. You must disarm these primitive superweapons and submit to oversight immediately." Earth's response was simple. They recalled all ambassadors. Back on Mars, Lieutenant Carla Mitchell stood before the War Council, a group of admirals, scientists, and politicians gathered to decide humanity's next move. She tapped a button on the holoprojector, and images of alien tech filled the room. Crystalline structures, organic bioships, sleek designs that seemed to defy physics. "We didn't just reverse engineer their technology," Carla said, her voice calm but firm. "We went beyond it. Our quantum drives don't just bend space. They fold it. Our shields don't absorb energy. They reflect it at amplified frequencies. And our weapons? They don't destroy ships. They erase them from causality." President Ellis, seated at the head of the table, leaned forward. His steel-gray hair caught the light as he nodded slowly. "They think we're still crawling," he said. "Show them we've been flying." Orders went out across the fleet. The Silent Fleet, a secret armada of experimental ships, was mobilized. These weren't the blocky, utilitarian vessels the aliens mocked. They were sleek, deadly, and armed with technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Quantum drives that folded space, shields that reflected energy back at amplified frequencies, weapons that didn't just destroy, they unraveled reality itself. As the fleet prepared for deployment, Jason Hale found himself pacing the corridors of the Liberty. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Cathar. Attack had been brutal, but it was also predictable. Humanity had been weak once, vulnerable. Now they were showing their teeth. The galaxy wouldn't take it lightly. Carla joined him in the observation deck, where the stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. "You okay?" she asked, her tone soft. Jason shook his head. "I keep thinking about what happens next. The Cathar are just one species. There are others out there. Stronger ones, smarter ones. If we push too hard, too fast, we might start something we can't finish." Carla crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on the stars. "We don't have a choice. If we wait, they'll come for us. All of them. Together. We need to strike first, show them we're not afraid." Jason sighed. "And if they call our bluff?" "They won't," Carla said. "Because it's not a bluff." Days turned into weeks as the fleet moved into position. Intelligence reports confirmed that the Vathari were massing their forces near Thalsis, their homeworld. The crystalline species had ruled 17 sectors for millennia, their empire, protected by harmonic shields that had repelled invasions since before humanity discovered fire. Their fleet numbered in the tens of thousands. When the ETS Liberty, Courage, and Vanguard emerged from fold space at the edge of the Vathari system, the crystalline species laughed again. Their High Archon floated above the council chamber, his chimes echoing through the comms channel. "You bring 3 ships to challenge a star? How poetic!" Then the Liberty fired. The Helios lance struck the harmonic shield, piercing it like it wasn't even there. The beam split into fractal patterns, unraveling the shield grid across the entire planet. Within minutes, the Vathari defense satellites detonated in sequence. Chain reactions of their own energy turned against them. The Courage launched swarm drones, tiny self-replicating machines that infiltrated their orbital docks and disabled engines from within. The Vanguard deployed gravity anchors, creating micro-singularities that crushed capital ships where they hung. No boarding, no negotiations. No warning shots. In 6 hours, the Vathari Empire ceased to function. When the last transmission from Thalsis cut out, mid-sentence, mid-laugh, the silence that followed across the galactic network was absolute. Carla stood in the observation deck of Mars Command, watching the data streams pour in. Alien fleets were retreating. Colonies once held by empires were declaring independence. Some were requesting human protection. They thought evolution meant superiority, she said. But we evolved under pressure. Ice ages, plagues, wars. We didn't conquer the stars because we were the strongest. We conquered them because we never stopped getting up. Jason joined her, his expression unreadable. Do you think they'll respect us now? Carla hesitated. Respect isn't given. It's earned. And we're just getting started. Far away, in the quiet between the stars, a new signal began to spread. Not of conquest, but of connection. Humanity had not just survived. They had finally been heard. The silence that followed the fall of the Vaethari was deafening. Across the galaxy, species that had once mocked humanity now found themselves holding their breath. The vids of Thalsis burning, its harmonic shields unraveling like threads in a tapestry, played on endless loops in alien news feeds. The crystalline empire, ancient and unshakable, had been erased in 6 hours. 6 hours. For beings who measured time in millennia, it felt like the blink of an eye. The Cathar were the first to act. They mobilized a swarm of 500 biohive, ships, their insectoid forms bristling with weapons and pulsing with green light. The fleet screamed through the asteroid belt of the Sol system, a tidal wave of destruction aimed straight at Earth. Jason Hale stood on the bridge of the ETS Liberty, watching the incoming armada on the holographic display. His hands gripped the railing tightly, but his voice remained calm. "Status report," he said. Lieutenant Carla Mitchell responded without looking up from her console. 500 ships inbound. Estimated time to engagement, 40 minutes. Jason nodded. "Prepare the Fold Lance array, deploy the swarm drones, and get me a direct line to Mars Command." Carla hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Sir, do you really think we can take them all?" Jason turned to her, his expression unreadable. "We don't have to take them all. We just have to make them wish they hadn't come." The battle began with a flash of light as the Liberty folded space, appearing directly above the lead hive ship. The Helios lance fired, its beam slicing through the vessel like a knife through paper. The ship didn't explode. It unraveled, its very existence, erased from the fabric of reality. Before the rest of the Cathar fleet could react, the Liberty folded again, reappearing behind another cluster of ships. The process repeated, fold, fire, fold. Each shot was precise, each strike devastating. The Cathar tried to adapt, launching waves of smaller fighters and deploying countermeasures to disrupt the human ship's quantum drives. But the swarm drones released by the Liberty were relentless. Tiny and self-replicating, they infiltrated the Cathar vessels, disabling engines, corrupting systems, and turning the biohive ships against one another. The battlefield became a chaotic mess of explosions and collapsing structures. From her station, Carla monitored the data streams, her fingers flying over the controls. She adjusted targeting algorithms, recalibrated shield frequencies, and coordinated with the other ships in Jason's task force. Despite the chaos, she felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a test. A test of everything humanity had built, everything they had learned. 37 hive carriers down, Carla announced, her voice steady. "Enemy formations are breaking." Jason nodded. "Keep the pressure on. Don't let them regroup." As the battle raged, the Cathar fleet began to falter. Their numbers dwindled, their tactics failed, and their morale crumbled. When the last hive ship imploded under the weight of a human resonance bomb, the survivors broadcast a single word across all frequencies: "Mercy." There was no reply. Back on Mars, President Ellis watched the aftermath of the battle unfold on a holoscreen. The room was silent except for the hum of machinery and the occasional beep of incoming reports. He leaned back in his chair, his steel gray hair catching the light as he exhaled slowly. "They thought we were weak," he said, his voice low. They thought we were nothing more than fragile organics clinging to a rock in the void. Now look, at us. Ellis turned to his advisors, his gaze sharp. Send a message to the Galactic Network. Let them know this isn't about conquest. It's about respect. If they leave us alone, we'll leave them alone. But if they come for us again, we'll show them what humanity is truly capable of. The message spread quickly, carried by subspace, relays, and quantum comms. Species that had once dismissed Earth as irrelevant now scrambled to reassess their stance. Some retreated, pulling their fleets back to their home systems. Others reached out cautiously, seeking dialogue. Humanity's rise had been swift and brutal, but it had also been undeniable. On the Liberty, Jason stood in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The battle had left him drained, both physically and emotionally. He had seen death on a scale most people couldn't comprehend, and he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy wouldn't forget what humanity had done. They wouldn't forgive it either. Carla joined him, her presence a quiet comfort. "You did what you had to do," she said, her tone gentle. Jason shook his head. "We did what we had to do. This isn't about me or you or even the fleet. It's about showing the galaxy that we're not afraid to fight for our place." Carla crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Do you think they'll ever see us as equals?" Jason sighed. "Some will, others won't. But that's not our job. Our job is to survive, to keep moving forward. Equality, respect, those are luxuries we can worry about later." As the days passed, the effects of humanity's actions rippled across the galaxy. Colonies, once held under the iron grip of empires, declared independence. Trade routes once controlled by warlords opened up to new opportunities. Some species even requested human protection, seeking shelter under the shadow of Earth's newfound power. But not everyone was willing to accept humanity's rise. Rumors began to circulate about secret alliances forming in the dark corners of the galaxy. Species that had never interacted before were now banding together, united by a common fear. Humanity had shown its teeth, and the galaxy was starting to bear its own. Jason knew the peace wouldn't last. The battles ahead would be harder, the stakes higher. But for now, there was a moment of calm, a chance to breathe. Far away, in the quiet between the stars, a new signal began to spread. Not of conquest, but of connection. Humanity had not just survived. They had finally been heard. The galaxy was changing. The fall of the Vathari and the defeat of the Cathar had sent shockwaves through every system, every empire, every species. For centuries, the stars had been ruled by the strong, the ancient, and the unyielding. Now, a new power had emerged, one that no one had seen coming. Humanity wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to define their place in a universe that had once dismissed them as irrelevant. On Mars, Lieutenant Carla Mitchell stood in the command center, her eyes scanning the data streams pouring in from across the galaxy. Reports of rebellion in alien colonies. Requests for aid from species once oppressed by empires now in disarray. Even whispers of gratitude from those who saw humanity not as conquerors, but as liberators. Carla felt a strange mix of pride and unease. Pride because humanity had proven itself capable of greatness. Unease because she knew the cost of that greatness would only grow higher. President Ellis sat in the War Council chamber, surrounded by advisors and military leaders. His steel-gray hair caught the light as he leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "We've shown them what we're capable of," he said. "But now we need to decide what kind of power we want to be." One of the admirals spoke up, his tone sharp. "They'll come for us again. You know that. Every species out there is either scared or angry. Either way, they won't let this stand." Ellis nodded. "I know, but we don't have to fight every battle. We don't have to crush every enemy. We can choose our path carefully." Carla listened quietly, her mind racing. She knew what the president was suggesting, a shift from outright war to something more strategic. Diplomacy, alliances, trade. It wasn't just about showing strength anymore. It was about building trust. Far away, aboard the ETS Liberty, Captain Jason Hale stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The ship was docked at a human outpost near the edge of explored space, its crew resting after weeks of relentless combat. Jason could feel the weight of leadership pressing down on him. Every decision he made, every order he gave, carried consequences that rippled across light years. "Sir," a young ensign called out, breaking the silence. "Message from Mars Command. They want an update on fleet readiness." Jason turned, his expression unreadable. "Tell them we're ready, always ready." The ensign hesitated before speaking. "Do you think we'll ever stop fighting?" Jason sighed, leaning against the railing. "I don't know. Maybe. But even if we do, the galaxy won't forget what we've done. And neither should we." As the days passed, humanity's influence began to spread. Diplomatic envoys traveled to newly independent colonies, offering aid and protection in exchange for alliances. Scientists worked tirelessly to reverse engineer alien technology, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. And the silent fleet, once a secret weapon, became a symbol of Earth's resolve. But not everyone welcomed humanity's rise. In the shadows of the galaxy, whispers of resistance grew louder. Secret meetings took place on abandoned moons and hidden stations. Species that had never interacted before were now uniting under a common banner. Fear was a powerful motivator, and humanity had given them plenty to fear. On the Liberty, Jason received intelligence reports detailing these secret alliances. He didn't share them with the crew, at least not all of them. Some things were better left unsaid. Instead, he focused on preparing the fleet for whatever came next. The battles ahead would be harder, the enemies smarter. But Jason knew one thing for certain: humanity couldn't afford to lose. Carla joined him in the observation deck, where the stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. "You look tired," she said, her tone soft. Jason shrugged. "Maybe. But I don't have time to be tired." Carla crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Do you think we're doing the right thing? All this fighting, all this destruction, it's hard to see the end game." Jason sighed. "I don't know if it's the right thing, but it's the only thing. If we stop now, if we hesitate, they'll come for us. All of them. Together." Carla nodded slowly. "And if we keep going? What then?" Jason turned to her, his expression serious. "Then we win. Not just the battles, but the war. And maybe, just maybe, we earn a place at the table." Back on Mars, President Ellis prepared for the next phase of humanity's campaign. He knew the galaxy wouldn't accept Earth's rise without resistance, but he also knew that humanity had something no other species did: the ability to adapt, to evolve, to overcome. Ellis stood before the assembly of admirals and scientists, his voice steady. "They thought evolution meant superiority," he said. "But we evolved under pressure. Ice ages, plagues, wars. We didn't conquer the stars because we were the strongest. We conquered them because we never stopped getting up." The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. "We don't want their thrones," Ellis continued. "We want their respect, their trust, their future." As the meeting concluded, Carla approached the president, her expression thoughtful. "Do you really think they'll give it to us?" Ellis smiled faintly. "Respect isn't given. It's earned. And we're just getting started." Far away in the quiet between the stars, a new signal began to spread, not of conquest, but of connection. Humanity had not just survived. They had finally been heard. A year had passed since the fall of the Vaethari and the defeat of the Cathar. The galaxy was still reeling from the rise of humanity, a species that had gone from being mocked to being feared in the span of months. The stars no longer felt silent to Captain Jason Hale. They felt alive, buzzing with whispers, rumors, and speculation. Humanity's name was on every tongue. Some spoke it with awe, others with fear, and a few with hatred. But no one ignored it anymore. The Galactic Council reconvened, not in the grand spire of Thalsis, which now floated as a lifeless husk in its nebula, but aboard the ETS Unity, a new flagship built from salvaged alien alloys and human ingenuity. It was a symbol of what humanity had become, a blend of strength and adaptability, of destruction and creation. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the chamber, their forms ranging from crystalline to insectoid to shapes that defied description. Some came willingly. Others came reluctantly. None came laughing. Jason Hale stood at the head of the chamber, his posture straight but not rigid. He didn't wear the uniform of a conqueror. Instead, he wore a simple gray suit with the Terran star emblem stitched onto the shoulder. His voice carried across the room, calm but firm. "Humanity didn't seek war," he said, "but we will not be erased. We didn't come to rule you. We came to remind you. Fragility is not weakness. Mortality is not failure. And compassion? That's not primitive. It's what makes us endure." The room was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. For centuries, the galaxy had judged species by their strength, their age, their power. But humanity had shown something else: resilience, a refusal to back down, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Lieutenant Carla Mitchell watched from the observation deck above the chamber. She had helped design the technology that made this moment possible, the quantum drives, the shields, the weapons. But she knew none of it mattered without trust. Humanity could destroy empires, but could they build alliances? Could they inspire cooperation instead of fear? President Ellis sat in the front row of the chamber, his steel-gray hair catching the light as he listened to Jason's words. He felt a quiet pride swelling within him. This wasn't just about showing the galaxy what humanity could do. It was about showing them who humanity was. When Jason finished speaking, he paused, letting the silence stretch. Then, slowly, one by one, the delegates rose to their feet. It wasn't applause. It was acknowledgement. Respect. Far away, in the systems once ruled by the Vathari and the Cathar, life began to change. Colonies that had been oppressed for millennia declared independence. Trade routes opened up, carrying goods and ideas across borders that had once been closed. Some species reached out to Earth, seeking partnerships and alliances. Others remained, cautious, watching from the shadows, waiting to see what humanity would do next. Carla stood on the bridge of the Unity, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. It was marked with human outposts, peacekeeping zones, and open trade lanes. The map wasn't just a representation of territory. It was a web of connections, fragile but growing stronger every day. "You did it," she said to Jason, her tone soft. Jason shook his head. "We did it. All of us. Every scientist, every soldier, every engineer. Humanity didn't get here alone." Carla nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Do you think they'll ever truly accept us?" Jason sighed. "Maybe. Maybe not. But that's not the point. The point is, we're here. We're part of this galaxy now, whether they like it or not." Back on Mars, President Ellis prepared for the next phase of humanity's journey. He knew the battles ahead wouldn't all be fought with weapons. Some would be fought with words, with diplomacy, with patience. But he also knew that humanity had proven itself capable of more than survival. They had proven themselves capable of growth. Ellis stood before the War Council, one last time, his voice steady. "They thought evolution meant superiority," he said. but we evolved under pressure. Ice ages, plagues, wars. We didn't conquer the stars because we were the strongest. We conquered them because we never stopped getting up. The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. We don't want their thrones, Ellis continued. We want their handshake, their voice, their future. As the meeting concluded, Carla approached the president, her expression thoughtful. Do you really think they'll give it to us? Ellis smiled faintly. Respect isn't given, it's earned, and we're just getting started. Far away, in the quiet between the stars, a new signal began to spread, not of conquest, but of connection. Humanity had not just survived, they had finally been heard.